So I'm Sarah LeVake, and with me today we have Killarney Traynor.
Hey, everyone.
So tell us a little about yourself.
I'm Killarney Traynor. I've been friends with you for what, like 6, 7 years now?
Thereabouts.
Yeah, I think it's been about that. And I write books. I do bookkeeping during the day and I write books at night. I also write scripts and occasionally make short films or movies. So yeah, that's me. This is some of me.
So what is your latest book about?
The latest book is one that I wrote with my sister Peggy, and it's called The Monster of Deepwater Lake. And it's set in the 1930s. And it's about a guy who comes to New Hampshire to see if his old friend is insane or if there's actually a monster in Deepwater Lake. So it's kind of thriller, supernatural, fun stuff.
I really enjoyed that one, actually.
Oh, I'm glad. Yeah, but then it should be out by the end of November. So there's some delays.
Let's see. When did you start writing? Not like this specific book, but like in general.
I think that would have been when I was 7. I started writing. I always joke that I was published by 8 because what happened was me and my brother wrote this book for Christmas to give to our family, and I wrote the words, he drew the pictures, and it was like, I think about 2 princes who find 2 princesses or something like that. And we copied it and we bound it and we gave everybody a copy, and it was we sold out. So it was a bestseller.
Very nice.
Yeah. So I would say it was around when I was 8,
Okay.
Yeah.
So what got you started into it?
Laura Ingalls Wilder, actually.
Yeah.
Because I was sitting in my bed reading Little House in the Big Woods, the first one. And I must have been 7 or something. I must have been 7 or 8, about the same time. And I felt like I disappeared into the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of got freaked out. That had never happened before. And I ran out to tell my mom, like, did I disappear? And she was like, no, you were just reading. That's what happens when you read. And I remember going back into my room going like, that's the most awesome thing ever. I wonder if I can get that to happen again. Mm-hmm. And then I started thinking, I wonder if I could do that for other people, like make them disappear into a story. So I've been trying to do that ever since. I won't say for how long, but I've been trying to do that ever since.
Okay. So how did you come up with the idea for the monster of, was it
Deepwater Lake.
Deepwater Lake. How did you come up with that idea?
I can't remember. I think my sister and I were on a cruise and we were talking about monsters in the ocean. And we were both watching, I can't remember the actor's name, but he played Elliot Ness in the old black and white show. And we thought, well, what if he was like fighting a monster in a lake, or what would that be like? So the book was based on the idea of whoever it was that played Elliot Ness in the Untouchables originally, not Kevin Costner, the original one. And what would he be like in a monster book? So that's where we came up with the idea.
There you go.
I'm pleased to say that when I gave my sister the draft, she was like, oh yeah, he sounds like that actor. I'm like, yes, score.
Good. All right. So how was this book different than any of your others?
That's a good question. It's a lot more action filled, I think, than some of my others. I've never done one that dealt with gangsters before. So that was fun. There's gangsters in it. And it's a lot more like a 30s or 40s thriller than anything I've tried to do. So it has a very old movie feel to it, which I really like. But when I was done writing, I'm like, I'm not even sure this works because feels so different than what I've done before. But it's a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to write. It was the characters were really distinctive pretty quickly. And I had to do a lot of research into Navy history to make sure I was accurate. So that was a lot of fun.
Good. So how do you go about publishing your books?
Like, how detailed of an answer do you want?
Why don't you give us a simple version? And if I want more, I'll ask you for more.
Okay. So essentially you write the first draft of your book, you edit it several times, then you have it, you hire an editor, or you get browbeat a best friend into editing it for you. And after you have a draft that you think is publishable, usually the next step is I publish through Amazon.com. So I create the interior of the book, if you will. I create the cover, the back cover. I write the blurb for it. I usually send out the manuscript to several reviewing sites that you can pay to get, reviews. You can't pay for a good review, but you can pay for a review. Okay. So sometimes I don't always publish the whole review. But and then what you do is, you can buy ads and that sort of thing. But after you format the interiors, and you need one for the ebook, one for the print book. Mm-hmm. You basically upload it onto Amazon, and they do all the rest of the work for you. You do have to be careful. You can't just hit ready to sell now. You have to get copies of whatever you put out there, because sometimes you get a copy in, a draft in, and you're like, oh, the cover is all crooked. So, or that's actually the wrong interior. I uploaded the wrong book somehow. So you do have to double check it, but it's actually really simple. It's a lot of work, but it's not that hard to do. Formatting can be tricky, because sometimes, the format will just go off, or there's something in, you have to just destroy what you did and start all over again. That can be tricky, but once you get a good rhythm, it's pretty easy to do.
All right.
Yeah.
So are you planning on writing more?
Oh, yes. Yes.
What are you working on now?
I'm actually in a dry period right now where I'm not actively working on a book. It's been very hard not to have something I'm actively working on. I wrote a few short scripts in the meantime, but I'm just basically outlining a bunch of, my sister Callie calls them popcorn books. So they should be short, fun adventure type books. And then I've also got, I call it a Gothic novel, but it's not like vampires or that sort of thing. It's really more of an old fashioned Gothic novel about people in an old house that have things happen to them. So I'm working on that. And then it seems like there's always like a dozen of other little stories that are in the back of your head. But those two things, the popcorn books and the Gothic novel, are the ones that I'm actively outlining right now.
Okay. Nice. So can you tell us about your other books just a little bit?
Oh, sure. So my first book, the first published book, because there's a lot of unpublished books that went before it, was Summer Shadows. And that was, it was a story about a woman whose sister dies and leaves her 3 children. And she and the 3 children go up to Franklin, New Hampshire to renovate a summer home, and end up next door to a house that's haunted with a murder that's been solved, quotation marks up both times. And they find that in the midst of trying to heal from the trauma of losing the sister, they also have to solve an old case. And it's about 2 things. It's about the old case, but it's also about them coming together as a family. I originally intended the book to be just sort of like a light, old-fashioned Disney style feel book. It ended up being a lot bigger than that. It still feels Disney, but it ended up being a lot more, I think, heartfelt than I originally intended, but that was good. And then the second book I had was about a treasure hunt in a New Hampshire farm. So a failing New Hampshire horse farm that might have a Civil War treasure buried on it. And that one was a lot of fun because I got to research a lot of history. And the 2 main characters verbally spar all the time. And that was a lot of fun to write. And then I've written these 3 supernatural stories with my sister Peggy, which was great because it taught me how to write more concisely and how to write about more towards a thriller line. So the first one was Tale Half Told, which was about 4 people being snowed into a haunted house in the 1970s. And then there was Universal Threat, which was about 3 teenagers that get lost while they're hiking and come across a downed alien ship, and they're being chased by aliens. And that one I set in the 80s just so I could use all my Star Trek references. And that was a lot of fun. So, and then the other one was a book that I wrote, was Michael Lawrence, which was, I converted a script I wrote into a novel. So I think that's it right now.
So how many novels have you worked on? How many scripts have you worked on, do you think, that have become more than...
that we filmed?
Yeah.
Oh, that narrows it down. That I've written, let me see, 3 short films and 2 feature length. And then there was others that I helped edit or I helped shoot or something like that. But yeah, they are defined by the fact that I usually have very large casts and very ridiculous situations happening. So I tend to write like a 1940s comic writer.
Okay.
I haven't quite done a pie fight, but it's on the list of things to do.
Okay. So are there any of those movie titles that we can find somewhere?
Yes, you can still find Wedding Follies, I believe, on YouTube. That was my first script. We filmed it a long time ago. The other films, they're kind of being held up because of some issues with the production company. But my latest film, which is called The Time Travelers, it was filmed earlier this month, and you were in it, as you recall. And that should be out shortly. It's with the editor right now, who's also my sister Peggy. So we should have a launch date for that pretty soon, and I'll be putting that on my website and giving Sarah all the details. So yeah, I'm excited about that one.
Me too. That was fun. Yeah. I got to play a character completely unlike my real self.
I remember you just kept coming up to me saying, but I don't scream in real life. I'm like, well, you'll scream today.
I did. I screamed more that day than I think I have in my entire life.
You did it very well. You're a very accomplished actress. Stepped out of your comfort zone for this.
So back to the writing. Why do you write?
The short answer is I write because there are people in my head that keep yelling at me until I tell their story. That's kind of true. It's like there's just an itch that you have to scratch. And usually it's like, well, I don't know if I can tell this story. Or if you were going to tell the story, how would you tell this story? Mm-hmm. And it becomes sort of a puzzle that you have to solve. Like how would you convey, for instance, in Summer Shadows, the idea of loss, and how do you rebuild a family after that? And that just became kind of like, I don't know, like, I kind of want to find out. So I just started writing Julia's story because I wanted to know how it turned out. Like I have a good idea when I start how it's going to end, but I don't really know how you get there. So it usually starts with a question, and the question won't leave me alone. Mm-hmm. But the way I know that the story is now ready to write, because there's always a question in your head, is that I can start hearing the characters speak. And when I can start hearing the characters speak, then I'm like, okay, now I'm ready to write. I know them well enough that I can start putting it actually on paper.
Okay. So, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. They start arguing with me.
I've had that happen, yeah. So what helps you to write? Like music, pets, reading, a specific pen?
Oh, definitely music. I always create a soundtrack for every movie, or every book has its own soundtrack. So sometimes it's songs, sometimes it's actual soundtracks that I'll mix and match to get the right feel for it. With Necessary Evil, there was actually one song that I had to listen to every time I sat down, because otherwise I couldn't get into the lead character's head. And because she was the one telling the story, I had to get into her head. And it was this sad song from the 70s. And right now, I can't remember what it is, but I know Gordon Lightfoot wrote it. And that was, Carefree Highway. Carefree Highway was her song. So once I heard that, then I got into I don't know why it was Carefree Highway, because she was stuck. So in that movie, that song's not about being stuck, but yeah, that was her song.
Maybe that's what she wanted to be.
Maybe, but it was perfect. It set the tone. And I feel like every book has sort of a lighting, like a color with it. And hers was like I know I sound really weird right now, but her color, the color of that book was supposed to feel like a warm summer, like the twilight when the light's dying, that it was supposed to have that look to it, or that feel. And that song helped me get there.
There you go. So. Who are you inspired by in your writing?
That's a good question. For writers, it would be definitely Charles Dickens, John le Carré, Mary Tyler Moore, Mary Higgins Clark. I've been reading a lot of Edith Wharton lately, so she's been pretty heavily influencing how I think. Laura Ingalls Wilder too, P.G. Wodehouse. I guess I have a lot, but those are the core people that when I need. When I was a teenager, I was obsessed with this Christian writer called Linda Chaikin. She wrote pirate books. So whenever I'm feeling bad, I reach for her books and I reread them. So those are probably the writers that influenced me the most, at least on page. But you know how it is, like every time you discover a new writer, you know, they end up influencing you.
Of course. So what is your advice for other writers?
Read a lot, read all the time, and read everything you're interested in. Unlike Sherlock Holmes, you can stock your head with anything you want because everything will become useful. So don't feel like you have to narrow your field. When you start writing a book, you're going to have to research something specifically for that book, like space travel or time travel theories or Civil War treasure, but just generally speaking, be curious, watch and read everything that you want to. Be careful what you read, only in the sense of don't read authors that leave you with like a sticky feeling, or that may leave you very uncomfortable. It's okay for an author to challenge you, but you shouldn't have one that weakens you. So that would be my only cautionary on read everything. But the second thing would be, if you want to know people, talk to people, but really listen to people and compare what they say about themselves to how you see them. And that will tell you the difference between the two is really important. It's really important. And I can't even tell you how or why, but you're going to see it. The more you write, the more you realize that people aren't always 100% accurate about themselves. And that nuance will really help you in designing characters. Okay. So, the third, have fun. So write what you want to read and have fun.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add?
If you want to find me, I do have my own website. It's www.killarneytraynor.com. And make sure you check out the rest of Sarah's magazine because it's really good. Other than that, no. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.